The Edmonton Oilers just blew a multi-goal lead to the Vancouver Canucks. Leon Draisaitl might be hurt. Stuart Skinner might not be able to stop a beach ball. There's a whole lot to talk about. Let's get to work.
You are Locked On Oilers, your daily podcast on the Edmonton Oilers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, and welcome to today's edition of Locked On Oilers. I am Nick Zararis. Today's episode, this opening segment right here I am talking to you right now in, is being recorded after the fact. I have recorded this episode right after the game ended. I did not go back and watch the press conferences or hear any of the quotes. It's important to note one of the key themes of this episode is Leon Draisaitl leaving the game against the Canucks and returning, not looking himself. According to Chris Knobloch, he was only dealing with cramping. Whether or not that is true, we don't know, but keep that in mind for the remainder of this episode. I hope you guys enjoy it. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Thursday edition of Locked On Oilers. I hope everybody has had time to lick their wounds, consolidate their feelings, process, and get ready to move on to Game 2. One game does not define a series, but before we get to today's show, got to remind you, today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Make every moment more right now. New customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/locked-on to get started. So there's no other way to describe it. That was a fatal meltdown. And the Oilers have some explanations. They have some reasons. They're not excuses because you can't justify that type of loss. You can't blow a game. You're up 4-1 against a third string goalie when you have some of the best players in the world on your team. And you give credit to Vancouver, who had a good game, but that's a really tough look. That is a really tough look for a team that hasn't really faced any adversity since probably February, but bouncing around. The first segment on today's show, we're going to talk about the bigger picture, the storylines, the ideas coming out of this game. The second segment, we're going to dive into some of the key points within the game where the energy and the momentum started to shift. And then segment number 3, we're going to look ahead to game number 2 and some takeaways, some thoughts, some ideas. You can't lose a game like that. And I know that's going to sound very fan-centric and very not grounded in reality. It's pretty disingenuous to say you can't lose a game like that, considering it just happened and the Oilers did lose a game like that. But to lose in that way to that team when you had it going for you, that's what's so infuriating about this. You go look at the box score. You got goals from Cody, Ceci, Mattias Ekholm, and you got 2 from Zach Hyman. In a game where you get 2 goals from your defenseman, as a team that doesn't have amazing secondary scoring, and in a game where McDavid and Draisaitl clearly weren't going all the way, Draisaitl's injury is different. McDavid he wasn't himself. Vancouver did a good job defending him. 1 scoring chance, a fat donut of shots on goal for Connor McDavid. That's the first time ever in his career in the postseason he's been held without a shot on goal. This is not a good performance. There is no way to sugarcoat it. There's no way that locker room right now, as players are talking with the media, as Chris Knobloch is probably at the podium now as I'm recording this episode, there's no way any of those guys feel okay right now. That is a type of loss that is fundamentally demoralizing, and it really becomes a concern. And we'll talk about it more in the second and third segments because you've heard me talk about it quite a bit through the 3-ish weeks I've been doing the show now. Each of these games takes on a life of their own within the series. And sometimes you can look over at the Boston-Toronto, that series as well. You can look over at the Boston-Florida series to see how little one game can matter. The Bruins came out game 1, kicked the Panthers' butts. Not even a close game. And then tonight, game 2 of that series, complete polar opposite. It was close for a while. And then Florida turned it on and the Bruins got stomped out. And then both of those teams realized, okay, we're in this now. This is real. It got a little bit chippy there at the end. A lot of guys got tossed. You can't know what's going to happen in game 2 of Canucks Oilers until they play game 2, being that it's Wednesday going into Thursday. We've got some time. That's going to have to digest, let the stew over. You probably won't have a full practice, being that you're in the playoffs. You'll have a light skate, maybe an optional practice for guys on the fence. Maybe see if Adam Henrique can go. That was one of the key notes going into this game. Adam Henrique out with an injury. Connor Brown drawing in, first playoff game as an Oiler. Some juggling on the lines. Matthias Janmark playing up with McDavid and Hyman. And Janmark playing with McDavid and Hyman, and then Connor Brown playing in the bottom 6. Man, that Ceci Nurse pair. You heard me bemoan them on the podcast we did the other day, previewing the series with our friends over at Locked On Canucks, and just neither of those guys instills confidence in you when they have the puck on their stick in their own zone. I know Ceci had a goal. I know Nurse has had offensive flourishes in the past where he's been an impactful player in the offensive end. But when you are getting cycled into oblivion and neither of those guys can win a foot race to physically engage enough where they might be able to win a body positioning battle, it's really tough sledding when you can't get the puck back. When you are consistently on your heels, like the Oilers were, for basically the entire third period, you are putting yourself in a difficult position. You know your goalie, you know Stuart Skinner is volatile. You know that it can snowball on him. You know things can get out of control if you don't play in a way that's going to benefit you. And the Oilers did not come out and execute the type of game you want to see from your team on the road against a quality opponent. I know Vancouver's down to their third goalie. I know they are kind of just happy to be here. They won their one playoff series, first playoff run in front of fans in a really long time. That building was really loud on TV. When you are playing a backup goalie like the Oilers are, you need to take a page out of the Carolina Hurricanes playbook, the Calgary Flames playbook. You need pucks on net. You need pressure in front of him. You need to be funneling pucks down low, looking for rebounds, deflections. You need screens. And the Oilers, once they got out to that lead, they stopped pressuring Vancouver. And Vancouver did a really good job of increasing the tempo of this game. And you heard me talk about this on the preview and episodes I did last week leading up to the series. That tempo, you would figure if it was a fast-paced game, it would benefit the Oilers because of their high-end talent, because McDavid, because Draisaitl, Bouchard, Hyman, Nugent-Hopkins. You would figure that a team that likes defense, like Vancouver, who was really good defensively in the regular season, you would figure if it was the defensive team was going to play well, was going to control possession, you would figure that would benefit them. The caveat here, and this is where some people have really kind of shown how little they understand about some of these advanced statistics, in the Carolina Rangers series, where, Carolina has controlled possession, they've had the puck more, they haven't created a lot of dangerous offense. You go back and look at these goals that the Oilers concede, they're ugly. They are around the net front. They are goals. The Connor Garland goal has to be saved. I know Skinner has had highs and lows. I know Skinner he's not a Vasilevsky. He's not a Shesterkin. He's not a UC Saros. He's got to have that puck, man. And I understand why Chris Knobloch didn't use his time out there. But at that point, your biggest concern as a coach has to be slowing the game down. The Oilers very clearly were not matching the intensity and the tempo, whether that's because of the long layoff of winning their first round in 5 games and having an extended period of time, whether that's just Vancouver having that extra juice. The Oilers were not ready to meet the rush. And when I say the rush, and I'll end on this note, plenty more to talk about coming up next on Locked On Oilers, but the Oilers did not match the Canucks' intensity. And I know what you're going to say. They were up 4-1. They shouldn't have had to. I don't inherently disagree with you. But, excuse me, they were up 4-2. Excuse me. They did not have a shot on goal from the time Zach Hyman scored his goal in the second period till about 8 minutes to go in the third period. We're talking 15 minutes without a shot on goal, minimal scoring chances. The Oilers had 6 scoring chances, not shots on goal, scoring chances. They had 4 shots on goal, 6 scoring chances in the third period, and a game that got close there. But we are going to take a quick break and then come back. We're going to dive in a little bit more to some of the bigger ideas within this story, within this series that have developed after game 1, coming up next on Locked On Oilers. There is no I in team, but there is one in Indeed, and that's the hiring platform you need to build yours. When you're hiring, you need Indeed. Indeed is the hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. Instead of spending hours on multiple job sites searching for candidates with the right skills, Indeed's powerful hiring platform can help you do it all. We streamline hiring with powerful tools that find you match candidates. With Instant Match, over 80% of employers get quality candidates whose resume on Indeed matches their job description the moment they sponsor a job, according to Indeed data from the United States. The one thing I love about Indeed is that everything is all in one place. You can take assessments, you can set up interviews, and the actual interviews themselves through the site. Even better, Indeed is the only job site where you pay for applications that meet your must-have requirements. Start hiring now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your post at Indeed.com/locked-on. Offer is good for a limited time. Claim your $75 credit now at Indeed.com/locked-on. Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On podcast, your team every day. I was trying to think of how I would describe this game to somebody who didn't watch it. And I thought stylistically, the Canucks were going to have to be patient. They were going to have to be a counter-strike offense, which is not something they had done a whole lot of in the regular season. And I was very surprised how casually and how... I'm trying to think of the word I want to use to describe how the Oilers approached that third period. It was very cavalier in the sense they weren't really pushing to find another goal. And most nights, 4 goals should be enough to win you this game. And if the Oilers played good defense, if they don't have that fluky puck go in, the Lindholm goal that shouldn't go in, frankly, that pops in off of Stuart Skinner's leg, that one shouldn't happen. That is what gave them a little bit of life and got them back in the game. You get that JT Miller goal and then Zadorov. After the Zadorov goal, you got to fire the timeout. At 4-4, Chris Knobloch, you got to rip that timeout. You got to look everybody around and bring down the temperature of the game. You felt the momentum building against Edmonton. I felt it watching on TV. I'm sure you felt it watching on TV, or if you were at the game in Vancouver, I am sure you felt the game going against the Canucks. And in a tie game, you want to slow it down. You want to have control. And control does not necessarily correspond with success, as you heard me talk about before in regards to the Hurricanes. The Hurricanes have controlled play in their series, but they haven't done a whole lot with it. The Canucks were very patient in this game, but the thing that was dangerous about them was they were patient in a way, offensively, I'm saying, that they were passing to more dangerous chances, that they moved the puck around very well. And I'll give credit where it's due. Oilers penalty kill, really good again tonight. Oilers once again win the special teams battle 1-0. But when we talk about this game, the story of the game and the most important story coming out of this game is Leon Draisaitl. Whether or not Draisaitl is 100%, that we all know everybody's dinged up this time of year. The question is, how serious is it? The question is, how serious is this injury? How much is this going to impact his ability to play? And how can the Oilers cope? I do think the Oilers can win this series against the Canucks if Draisaitl is at less than 100%. But he cannot be a liability. And this is a real sensitive inflection point a lot of players and a lot of teams are uncomfortable with. And hear me out. There does come a point where a player trying to play through an injury harms his own team. I thought Draisaitl was fine once he came back into the game, but he very clearly wasn't himself. During that 6-on-4, once the Oilers pulled Skinner and they were chasing the game there, he didn't have his usual burst in his step. And I know what you're going to say. He's in that rock star zone, bottom of the right-hand circle, looking for the one-timer. But part of what makes that Oilers man advantage, and I use the term man advantage there because it wasn't a power play, they were 6-on-5. Part of what makes the Oilers dangerous there is that Draisaitl's able to take those little herky-jerky steps inward towards the goalie, and that typically is going to bring a defenseman towards him, which is going to open up that play, the jam play. And the Oilers had it there. The Oilers had the jam play two separate times. One got deflected, missed, and then the other one, he didn't hit the back door. I think it was McDavid to Nuge, and then I think the other one was Draisaitl to Hyman, and then Draisaitl got one directly on that on Seelovs, but it just didn't look right. I know once he got back in the game, he fell. That looked to be a skate thing. They brought it up on the broadcast. They clicked his skate back in. He didn't miss a shift again, but you need to understand how serious his injury is. You need to understand what it's impacting and how it limits you as a team. I think there might be an argument for shaking things up from a lines perspective. The Oilers lines were pretty stagnant in round one. They did swap Evander Kane and Warren Fogle. I believe that was after game. It might have been game 3, but it could have been after game 2 because Draisaitl's line wasn't playing great at 5-on-5. They were doing okay on goals, but they weren't controlling possession. So you might see something there. If Adam Henrique draws back in, I think he goes right back with Janmark in the Janmark spot with McDavid and Hyman. If he's not available, I think you might want to try throwing something at the wall, whether that's Nugent-Hopkins up there, whether that's Evander Kane up there. I don't know what Chris Knobloch's thinking as far as how he wants to use his forward groups, but one last thing on this subject of managing the game, feel for the game. I did not like the way Chris Knobloch handled the last few minutes of that game. And I know you're going to say, well, he has to save his timeout in case he needs the coach's challenge. I don't think in the playoffs you can afford to manage your game thinking about what's going to happen a few minutes from now. I think you're afforded that luxury in the regular season. I think you're afforded that luxury in other sports. You know, in baseball, you can manage your bullpen for tomorrow or the day after if this game is over. At 4-4 in the Stanley Cup playoffs in the second round, you need to rip your timeout now. And then if something else comes up, you pray the Toronto Command Center is on your side whenever it comes to that review. You're going to be down the stretch last few minutes of the game. You're probably going to get a little bit more leeway when the league will step in and actively do it themselves as opposed to you needing to request a challenge. So, and one more thing on that. If you're not going to rip the timeout on the Zadorov goal that makes the game 4-4, You gotta rip the timeout with what I believe was 40 seconds or so left in the game, where the Oilers tried to make the cross seam pass in the 6-on-5. JT Miller stuck his stick out, the puck went out of play, and the starters, McDavid, Draisaitl, Hyman, Ekholm, Bouchard, had been out there for I want to say 45 seconds to a minute. You rip that time out there. You draw something up for a set play because the Oilers won their faceoffs in the offensive zone in the 6-on-5 situation. You got to rip that time out. You got to have your play you want to call, your assistant. And most importantly, give those guys a chance to catch their breath. Most importantly, Draisaitl. Part of what makes the Oilers power play so unbelievably dangerous is Draisaitl's ability to rip that shot from that extremely tight angle that there's maybe 5 guys in the entire league that can hit it from there. And you know he's physically compromised. He's not 100%. You know he's not feeling the game right. You burn that timeout. You let everybody catch their breath. You talk them up. You make them feel good about it because the pressure was on them. The Stars know they are the stars of the Oilers, not the Dallas Stars, though I'm sure they're aware they're feeling the pressure too, based on how their very similar collapse against the Avalanche went. The Oilers need to find a way to match the Canucks' energy and bring some intensity. And we are going to talk a little bit more about what Game 2 might entail from an Oilers perspective coming up next on Locked On Oilers. It's winner take all time in the NBA and the NHL, and FanDuel is giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Sports fans, it's the best time of year. We got playoff hockey, playoff basketball, regular season baseball, NASCAR, Formula One. Sports calendar is in full swing. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Thank you very much for making Locked On Oilers a part of your Thursday today. And look, I know I sound awfully fatalist, awfully doomist, awfully nihilist after one game where the Oilers did not play well, and they very well could have won this game easily. That bodes well for the long-term trajectory of this series. I do have concerns that the longer this series go, the lingering cloud of Thatcher Demko returning and giving the Canucks a shot in the arm is real. Whether or not Demko is 100% or feels well or makes an impact, I think that's a little bit besides the point. If you want to read the tea leaves, if you're into speculation, the assumption is he has some type of ligament strain in his knee as opposed to a tear, which is what was initially feared. So if he plays with a strained meniscus or an ACL or an MCL, whatever, in his knee, is he going to be 100%? No. Can he make an impact? Yeah. And most importantly, and I was talking about this the other day with somebody in regards to the Rangers and Filipino and Blake Wheeler for that matter, the guys on the team will freaking move heaven and earth to keep the season going, to give that guy a chance to get back. The win it for player X or person Y, that is real. That matters. And I know you're going to say, well, Nick, they're professional athletes. They should be ready to go no matter what. It's true. But you give them a little extra motivation. You have that extra reason. And all I'm saying is the longer this series goes, you start to let the Canucks believe they can do this. And you're going to let this microcosm, this game, extrapolate outwards. And very quickly, this series in which the Oilers were really heavy favorites, and it falls apart because you were not ready for you were not ready. And I think part of the reason I feel this game has a little more weight than I would typically ascribe to a game one, the way they lost is something that is emotionally and psychologically draining. That is something that's hard to come back from, especially as a team that plays with a volatile goalie. again, you heard me say this in the trailer for the show the day before I took over doing the show. I really like Stuart Skinner, the person. I think his mustache is incredible. He is volatile. He can be very good or he can be very bad. I don't think he was atrocious tonight. But if he saves the Connor Garland shot, I think we might be having a very different conversation right now. That game very well could still be going on in overtime. But you've heard my main prescription for the Oilers. They need to bring some more intensity. They need to play faster, and they need zone time. It's great that the Oilers are able to score these ugly goals from the point. They're able to create rush opportunities. You need to put pressure on the Canucks. Make Tyler Myers play defense. Make Nikita Zadorov play defense. Make Ian Cole play defense. And they have individual players who are good. I like Nikita Zadorov's game. If you saw the stream I did of NHL 24 earlier on Wednesday afternoon, I talked a lot about Zadorov as somebody who's co-hosted Locked On Flames for the better part of 2 seasons. I'm very familiar with Zadorov's game. He has dynamic elements to his game. He does take stupid penalties. He can score goals. He's really fast in a straight line. He's got a big shot. He likes to wear really nice suits. He's a volatile player that can make things happen. His goal tonight, crucial in getting the Canucks in this game. You make him play defense, though, he takes a lot of penalties. Force him to play defense. Dump the puck in, go get it, force him to turn around, recover it, and try and break out. The Canucks did a great job of doing this to Ceci and Nurse tonight. And I've talked about this a lot in regards to the Rangers' second defensive pair issues. I think a lot of teams around the NHL deal with this problem as well. Typically, you want your second pair to be your defensively strongest pair, and you're going to use your first pair, which typically features a really good offensive defenseman. You're going to use that pair with your better offensive forwards to try and tilt the ice to facilitate more offense, chance creation, and hopefully get goals. Your second defensive pair needs to be stout defensively, and Nurse and Ceci block a lot of shots. They are okay at recovering on the puck. Their issue is their inability to win foot races and to play the puck cleanly. They are not great at breaking out. It's part of why the Oilers involve their forwards so much in their breakouts from their own zone. Part of the reason Nuge comes back, McDavid comes back, McLeod comes back, Holloway. Part of the reason you do that is so they don't have to pass the puck as far, that they only have to get the puck up to the half walls as opposed to the blue lines. And those long stretch passes that defenses are able to step up on and intercept or break up. Instead, the Canucks put a lot of heat on them, and the Canucks are one of the few teams that has the raw foot speed. The Canucks are a fast team. Pettersson is very fast in a straight line. JT Miller is very fast in a straight line. You let those high-end guys make plays, bad things happen. You would like to say the Oilers are at a point where they can withstand losing some minutes. And every team is going to lose some minutes in a hockey game. It's unrealistic to expect otherwise. But man, I'm going to pull it up real quick. You look at the Oilers on ice results. They didn't win a lot of minutes tonight. They won the bottom 6 minutes. And that's real. They won the bottom 6 minutes and the Ekholm-Bouchard minutes. That's really it. And Connor Brown only played 6 minutes. It's great. He had 70% of the scoring chances, but they lost the expected goals in there. You go over and you look at the quality of chances the Oilers generated tonight. It was ugly. The Oilers had 3 players finish positive in expected goals tonight, and that's Warren Foegele, Ekholm, and Bouchard. Like we talked about, you're probably not going to have a McDavid game where he has 0 shots on goal and 1 scoring chance and .01 expected goals again, maybe ever. But the Canucks showed you something tonight. This series is not over. The Canucks might have a lead, but as the old adage goes, a series does not begin until the home team loses a game. The Oilers have plenty working for them. Most importantly, they need Leon Draisaitl to be healthy enough that the Oilers do not have to reorganize their entire lineup. If Draisaitl is going to play and he is a lesser version of himself, the Oilers are going to need to try and mask whatever deficiencies are in his game because of said injury. Whether that's playing him on the wing with McDavid and really trying to minimize him to just trying to score, okay. If that's giving him faster line mates so they can do the dumping and chasing and he can be a little more stationary, okay. But if the lineup needs changes, the Oilers cannot wait too long to make that happen. There's plenty of time to go in this series. I might be a proponent of it's getting late early out there, but it is only been one game. That will just about do it for today's edition of Locked On Oilers. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts. Leave the show a 5-star review if you are watching over on YouTube. How worried are you about this Draisaitl injury? I feel it's not fatal, but they need him to be close to 100% if they're going to reach their ceiling. And that might not be fair, but it's the reality of playoff hockey. Everybody's dinged up. It's a matter of how hurt are you. That'll do it for today's show. I will talk to you guys tomorrow. Until then, let's go Oilers.